Hi and welcome to ABG Sundal Collier's Investor Days. My name is Stefan Knutsson. I'm an equity analyst here at ABG. And with me today I have Flexion Mobile and the CFO, Niklas Karusar. Welcome, Niklas.
Thanks a lot. Thanks. Always nice to be here. Cool. So presenting Flexion Mobile. I'm starting by showing the Q3 numbers. And on the way here, I looked at what revenues we had when we IPO'd 4 years ago. And then we reported for distribution, £1 million in revenue. And now 4 years later, we report quarterly revenues of £7 million. So it's almost 200 million SEK in quarterly revenue. So Flexion started to be quite big. It's based on a lot of growth. And we do show, again, organic growth of over 100% in distribution. So we are steaming ahead. As a growth tech company, it's quite a big milestone also to report a decent EBITDA in the company. So both growing and being profitable is quite attractive in today's market. And we report £1.5 million in adjusted EBITDA. And also in this turbulent market, to have a decent operating cash flow is, of course, very important. And we report almost £2 million. So that results in a cash balance of £10.5 million, 130 million SEK. So we have a very strong financial position, and we're like a bullet train at the moment in terms of performance. So what is Flexion doing? We are a technology-driven marketing company within gaming. We work with two verticals, alternative distribution and influencer marketing. I'm coming back to what that is. But basically what we do, we grow revenues to the big game developers around the world by growing their audience list, the number of end users they have. We operate on the gaming market, so we're not in betting or gambling, it's gaming. Yeah, it's an absolutely massive market, $200 billion, of which mobile is half, about $100 billion, and you have console on 50 and PC about 40. And our two verticals, alternative distribution, they are within the mobile sector, the market that it grows a lot. And there we focus on Android, which is about 85% of all mobiles. So it's basically all mobiles which are not Apple. The other vertical, influencer marketing, is platform agnostic, so it covers the whole gaming market. If we look at our value position within distribution, is where we historically have been focusing. We focus on the top end of the market, so the kind of 250 biggest game developers in the world. And they have reached out to the market through two stores in mobile. So it's Apple and Google. The problem is that everyone is doing the same. So these two stores are absolutely overcrowded as stores. And at the same time, it's hard for these developers to reach out to the alternative stores, which are by themselves very, very big stores. So we're talking Amazon, Samsung, Huawei, etc. So we've seen a market problem here with these stores. These alternative stores struggle to get games, and the game developers can't reach out to grow the revenue. So we built a distribution platform for a long time, and we now become the market leader in gaming on alternative distribution. And on top of this, of course, we have... apologies. This is new to me now. So this quarter, what we've done is that we launched a new distribution channel, which is Microsoft's Windows 11. And if you thought about what I've been telling us, is that distribution is within mobile, and now we come with a PC operating system. And this is very typical for our market, is that these stores are struggling to get the games, and the same applies to Microsoft. So they have teamed up with Amazon quite deeply, to be honest. So when you go into your Microsoft store on Windows 11 computers in about 30 big countries in the Western world, you can download your games from Amazon App Store. So this is a good example of how we, over time, grow our revenue distribution. It's early days, but here we have 3 games live already, and we reach, over time, 500 million potential customers. So the reach for us is absolutely massive. On top of this, we have influencer marketing, and I'm coming back to that. So how can little Flexion, the little fish in an absolutely massive pond, or even sea, I could call it, have a market-leading position, because the big giants should kind of swallow the little fish, eat the fish straight away. And it's all about that we were the first on the market. So we were world leading on repackaging games on the Nokia Ericsson time. So we started before everyone else. And what we managed to do is to build really high barriers of entry for others. And if you think about it, it's impossible to build a tech if you don't have the games. You can't get the games if you don't have the tech, and you can't build your distribution if you don't have tech and the games. So it's very hard for someone else to enter. But because we started so early, we have this position now when we are kind of a couple of years before anyone else. That have also resulted in that we have the leading portfolio of games on the alternative market. And last quarter, I looked at the value of that portfolio, not what we make, but what the games itself make for the game developers. And I looked at the top 1,000 list of games in the world. I looked at what Scandinavian listed gaming companies were generating, and they were combined generating about $30 million per month combined for their games. And this portfolio makes about 100 million. So it's 3 times bigger than listed companies in Stockholm in mobile. And that has 2 important factors. First of all, we are the biggest distributor of games into the stores. So we get really close cooperations with the stores. And secondly, what happened is that it's very hard to sign really big games because it's all about trust, because it's very large IPs involved. And because we have a large portfolio of games, we get much more credibility in the market than anyone else. So it's very, very hard for someone else who doesn't have any games to come and want a big game because no one's going to get it. In addition, the way we work with the tech, where we kind of repackage the games, the game files, means that we have access to the games technically. And that means that we can follow new trends on the market much earlier than anyone else, both because we technically can integrate them, but we can justify the investment on a much larger portfolio of games than anyone else. So we can go in really earlier into new games. And then we're building a multi-service offering for these big game developers for kind of cool niche markets within marketing services. So it becomes like a one-stop shop. So we're really working hard here to lock in developers into our ecosystem. There are 2 KPIs I think you should follow if you are interested in Flexion on distribution. One is what the top games generate per average after the launch phase and how many top games we have. And we can see now in this quarter we have 7 games generating $800,000 per month on average. So that means we can go to a top developer and say, hi guys, let's sign an agreement with us. And we generate on average $10 million per year for your game in additional revenues. And that is level where even the really big developers now start to listen to us in terms of revenue. Okay, they may make $500 million, but 10 million is a level where they take meetings and listening. And secondly, if you look on the growth over the last year, a year ago we had 5 games, I think $560,000, and now 7 games to 800. So from 5 to 7 doesn't sound much, but it's about 40% growth. And you see the same when you go from $500 to $800,000. So you do generate 100% growth as a company. And it kind of shows how we have different growth drivers in what we're doing. And this is the growth we saw in distribution, where it's over 100%. The other factor is the marginal cost, which is very low in distribution. And you see here over 2 years that gross profit has grown by over 200%, and the cost, the staff cost, which is kind of the only variable cost we have, is grown by 30%. And that is of course that we have a platform play. So anyone who's built a platform knows that it's extremely painful and costly to build it, and it takes much longer than you expected. But when you're finally there, you have a really good position because you can control your cost base. But it's another factor here which is also important, and that is that the 7 games I spoke about on the previous slide they generate 90% of the revenues, whereas the rest of the portfolio is 12 that we mentioned and a few more smaller games earn 10% of revenues. So what we can do at the moment is we replace a game that maybe generate $10,000 per month with a game that generates 800. So without any cost increase at all, you can grow your revenue for one game by 8 times. So you can really accelerate revenue growth without cost increase. Then we went into a second vertical, which is influencer marketing. And there, what we did was we acquired a German entity called Audiensely, where we have a purchase price of 10 million euros and an earnout up to 10 million. And they are a company that focusing on the high end of influencer marketing. So it's it's the high-end game developers and really strong influencers on that market. And they're primarily on YouTube. And influencer marketing has become very important because if you heard about IDFA, for example, that Apple start to control the data that the game developer can use when they want to market their games, influencer marketing is not dependent on personal data. So it's a perfect complement to the big drivers on the main market. They as a company, they're about 35 actually as a company. They're based in Germany. They're strong in Europe. They start to be pretty strong in the USA. They have about 2.5 million euros in revenues and an EBITDA quarterly basis about 0.4 million. And they have strong growth in the company, 60% top level and 90% below. But of course, these guys are also focusing on the top end of the market, but not the same customer base as we have. So what we're working on now is cross-selling. So they have, by signing with us, they double their customer base overnight. And those are effects we hope to see in 2023. But Audience is in that agency, which is manual. There is very little tech involved in Audience at the moment. So in addition, we invested in a small tech company called LightUp, who works on TikTok, which is now the world's biggest influencer marketing. The world's biggest social media platform. But there you have a lot of micro-influencers, really small influencers that you can't you can't accommodate through a manual agency model. So there we're working with LightUp, with Audiensely and old Flexion, see how we can scale that through a platform play, which then also later on you can apply to the big market where Audiensely is. So that's super, super exciting. If you look at group revenues, I spoke about distribution growing a lot and 70 million pound. Influencer marketing in pounds is 2.1, so we report 19 million pounds as a company. So on a run rate, we are now at almost 1 billion SEK. So little Flexion start to be big. The growth rate is also very strong, 140% on group level. There is a bit of acquisition boost in there, but still. We have guided. We guided at the beginning of the year 40 to 60% growth, and we had to increase that in the summer to 90 to 110%. And we're now year to date at 90% for distribution and 110% on group. So we're at the upper end of our guidance. Look a bit longer term, we see the green stuff is distribution, blue is influencer marketing. We see that we generate about 200% growth over 2 years. So we're steaming ahead. For me as a CFO, this is an interesting slide, the EBITDA. So we are on a group profit of 3 million pounds and an adjusted EBITDA, as I said, of 1.5 million pounds. But if you look on the growth rates here, you see that group profit is, as we said, steaming ahead. Staff costs and overheads, it's flatter. This is, of course, on a group level with Audiensely, and your EBITDA shoots away. And this is effect you can see even more if you look over 2 years. You see that your gross profit is growing here by almost 300%. Your OPEX costs are relatively stable, actually, even with Audiensely. And then you have this massive kicker on your EBITDA. So that's the effect now we see as a company and the effect of this low marginal cost in distribution. I just want to mention this without going into details. We went very early for IFRS accounting 4 or 5 years ago. And everyone who's followed the big gaming companies who now converted to IFRS quite late see that there's a lot of effects below your EBITDA, because when you acquire companies, you get all these intangible assets. You have to amortize up and down and back and forth. So it becomes a little bit noisy. And hence, we have reported adjusted EBITDA before, but we now introduced adjusted profit before tax to show what the company is kind of making on an operating level. You take away that effect, acquisition cost, and we're also taking out FX, which we've seen some effects now short term in the market. So just to summarize, Flexion has, if you listened to us before, we've been a distribution company. We're now shifting over to become a marketing company where we help the big game developers making more revenue in their games. Two verticals, alternative distribution, which we own. We are the market leader on that. Now we're working strategically to build up influencer marketing to also become a market leading position. And then we're looking at more verticals, not a lot, but maybe hopefully 1 or 2 or 3, where you look at the same thing. You kind of copy the success story we have from alternative distribution, where you go in to a niche market, you focus on the 250 biggest developers, and by being in a niche market, you can then create a market-leading position. It's all driven by sales synergies, that you work with the same customer base, the biggest developers. And finally, we are actually fundraising at the moment, and it may sound a bit crazy in today's volatile market, but we went live in 2018, and we never done a proper roadshow to retail before. And I think maybe we drowned a little bit in the noise we saw in this very, very strong in the strong market we've seen over a couple of years. So we just said, let's go out and tell our story. And we've spoken to a couple of players, and in the end, we selected Avanza. So we're reaching out to the whole Avanza network across Sweden over a week here, and it's 25 million SEK, so it's very little in total capital. It's about 4%, and it's 1 week activity, and it's closing tomorrow. So I want to mention that, and that is primarily, or it is a marketing activity to tell our story. But of course, 25 million SEK in today's market is worth 50 million back, yesterday when the market was good. So there's a lot of fun stuff we can do with that money. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Niklas. And I would like to start off by just going a bit on this year. It has been quite transformative for you as a company. Are you worried that expectations are getting too high here on
Depends what you're saying.
Yeah, but your view on it.
Now, we've shown a lot of growth. If you look on the way kind of our growth curves is, we have a steady growth pace in the company. And then you take these kind of steps, these kind of jumps. We did one jump when COVID came. In 1 quarter, we jumped up 75%. We signed 4 really big games at the end of last year, and 3 of them just shot off straight away. So you get another big jump. And then they are now coming out of their growth phase, or the kind of the launch phase. So this kind of coming into the more long-term growth. That's what we're saying in the quarterly report. But so there is a lot of things we can do on signing new games, adding more distributions like Windows 11. We've already spoken about that user acquisition is coming to our market. So there's a lot of things we can do to drive. You have influencer marketing, cross-selling, our developers to our customers to them, they helping us to drive our revenue. So there's a lot of things we can do, and then also at the same time look at bigger drivers. So yes, I think we can grow a lot. But is it 140% each quarter? Maybe not.
Yeah, that was part of the question, because as you said, much of the growth in distribution has been driven by these large games that you signed last year. Now you don't have the same pipeline of deals to distribute in the coming quarters. But can you tell us a little bit more about the opportunity where you see you have 7 games live now? How many can you target, and what do you see?
We said when we IPO'd, we had about 400 games we could target, and I think it's almost 1,000 games now. So the market, because the market is growing. We're looking at games to make about above $1.5 million in Google Play. Is 500,000 for small games, but 1.5 for the big ones. And I think we are now, is it 800,000 games we can 800 games we can look at. So the market is absolutely enormous still. And because we get better and better KPIs, and we're better at selling our product and more opportunities, of course, we have a good opportunity to sign more games. But I want to say that one thing is to sign games, but all this with distribution, and you can use influencer marketing to drive your own games. You can generate a lot of growth from the existing portfolio, for sure.
And if they are to be categorized at top tier, as you call it, where do you see, where is the threshold for being a top tier game?
With about $1.5 million in Google Play. And we say on average we generate about 10% of that. So that is $150,000 per month for us. And you see now that our top games are generating $800,000 on average. So yeah, of course, there are some of them are above their percentage, but it's also going for the really big titles.
And how many games is that roughly on a global scale? How many games can match that?
Is it 500 or whatever? It's we have 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then you also talked a bit about your broadening your offering to marketing services. I know it's early, but can you just talk a little bit more about that market and what one could expect from that?
So what I said earlier is that first of all, there has been 2 big players on the market, which is Google and Apple, and they are limited now by about competition authorities in about every country in the whole world. I would say it's a bit exaggerated, but in the US, in Europe, and Korea, etc., etc. So they can't take more positions, and you have Epic fighting with them in the US, Tim Sweeney, etc. So they are restricted in what they can do, and at the same time, the developers are now squeezed in these stores and also by the world commerce. So they are looking outside. And why shouldn't gaming, which is this massive market, be an open market like every other market in the world? So it's all happening now. And you have these big giants on the top within marketing services who look at user acquisition and all of that, and absolutely gigantic. But then Flexion coming from the bottom with a kind of unique customer relationship base, and we can look at new niche markets. And we said before, one thing could be direct to consumer distribution. So Epic with Fortnite, they said, let's skip the store and go directly to the end consumer. And other developers, it's very early days, but other developers are maybe looking at that also. And so they need to solve all the problems we solve within distribution. So why can't we set up a white label solution? Stuff like that.
And how does Audiensely make sure that, you said it was not a lot of tech involved. They usually are on social media platforms. I mean, isn't it quite easy for an influencer to do this themselves? Why are they employed by Audiensely, and how can they make sure that they continues to be employed by Audiensely?
It's a bit rude, but they're 20 years old and make way too much money. So no, I think they will have something like an agency or something in between, for sure. Like a movie star, they have a big team around them. But Flexion are coming from a platform play. So the whole thinking of how can you make this more scalable, because a manual agency business, yeah, you can grow it, but your cost base is going to grow linear with your revenue in some form or shape. Okay, you can make your accounts bigger and bigger, but you need to look at tech. And if there's anything we are good at, it's that. So we're working very closely. We, Audiensely, and this little startup, see how we can make it more scalable in general. It's no rush. It's early days for that whole sector, but it's over time for sure.
Perfect. And then my last question is just regarding the gross margin development of late. You did a deal with your largest US developer. Are you satisfied with the development so far?
Yeah. We're not commenting on an individual game contracts. We're not allowed in our development contracts. But yes, we're generating a lot of revenue from it, and I can also say there that if you read the press release, it's we can extend one of the existing games like on an evergreen basis until we fully recovered the required amount. So it's a large portfolio of games. It's very useful for us, and I think the structure is very good. So yes, I am satisfied.
Perfect. I think we're running out of time, and I would like to thank you, Niklas, for coming and presenting with us today.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for that. Thanks, everyone.